if we're making progress in those areas and we're adequately able to meet them to a measure where the horse is mostly comfortable and you're mostly comfortable, you're doing great. You're doing well. You're doing fine. And this is going to be really important. And that is how you're going to be able to measure whether or not you're doing good enough. Welcome to Season 5 of the Willing Equine podcast, the podcast all about creating positive relationships between horses and people. I'm your host, Adele Shaw, a certified equine behavior consultant, horsemanship mentor, and all-around horse lover. Getting back on track here, there are times, yes, where the situation comes about where we do need to find a different situation for the horse, and that is the best decision for that horse, and it will help them thrive and it will help you thrive. However, based on a lot of cultural conditioning, I don't think this is as common as people want to believe it is or are being told it is, even if they don't want to believe it. And again, this goes back to all my comments about all of the cultural conditioning and how much we hear on a constant basis. There are so many people from an early age, myself included, I would have kept my first horse. I would have kept my first horse, no problem. I would have been happy with him. I would have stayed with him until the day he passed away. And I would have supported him to the best of my abilities. It was young, uneducated abilities, but it would have been the best of my abilities. Had I not been constantly taught by the people around me that I needed more and better, and I needed to trade up for a more advanced horse if I wanted to keep showing and I wanted to keep pursuing being a horse person. And actually it was framed to me, it was phrased in such that, well, he'll be happier if you find him a new home. He will do better with a different job. He wants a different job. He'll be happier, and this is what's best for him. You should do this for him. And sometimes I think that it was intended, meaning that you shouldn't push the horse beyond their capacity, which I get that and I support that. But what we fail to tell these people, myself included when I was younger, what they failed to tell me was that there was a third option, or a second option, I guess I should say, or a third. Okay. So the first option being, you trade in horses. So you sell that one and get a new one so you can keep going with your progress and, win more medals and go higher in your training. The second option was you push your horse past their capacity and cause them to suffer. The third option is we adjust our goals and our expectations and we learn something different, and we continue our learning journey. We continue to grow as horse people, but we do it with the horse in mind and not just using them and throwing them out, right? We spend our time with our horses, and we spend that relationship with that horse and have them as our partners, our true partners that we don't abandon when they no longer serve us. And we go and learn. I could have learned so much. I could have learned about nutrition at the time. I could have learned about how to trim my own horse's feet. I could have learned more groundwork. I could have learned about in-hand dressage stuff. I could have learned about body work. I could have learned about fitness stuff, like physical therapy type stuff with him, like how to help support him in different ways. I could have learned about body language. I could have learned about emotions. I could have learned about behavior. I could have taught him clicker training, positive reinforcement. I could have taught him tricks. We could have done horse agility. It was unlimited the amount of stuff that I could do with him. But that was never presented to me as an option. I was young and I didn't, know any different, and there was no social media. So there are a lot of times where people are being presented with this pressure to give up their horses or to do something different because of this ingrained cultural mindset around horses. And so that can really feed into that I'm not good enough feeling and convince us that we need to do something differently when that's not true. That is not true. Now, do you want to be a professional rider who goes to the top levels and goes to the Olympics? That's great. That's amazing. I would encourage you to go listen to some of my other podcast episodes where I talk about options for this, such as leasing your horses or, just things like that. There's other options than buying and selling horses, but that's a whole nother topic. We need to understand that this has been ingrained into our culture as a whole, and take a step back and really objectively evaluate what it would look like if we truly like the situation was not healthy for the horse or the human. Not that you're not good enough. Okay, we're going to get rid of that mindset. We're going to stop telling ourselves that. It's not that you're not good enough. It's that this situation may or may not be healthy for you or your horse. It may not be the best one moving forward for you guys to thrive. And it's not probably going to look like what anybody else is going to tell you. It's probably not going to look like what our culture has been telling us about horse keeping and horse caregiving. It's probably not going to look like what your friends are going to understand, or the other people at your boarding facility are going to understand, or even your trainer is going to understand. It's going to look very different than what we've been taught. So here's what we need to remember when we are evaluating whether a horse is being properly cared for and that they are thriving. Horses need their needs met. You need to meet their needs, and then you also need to be meeting your needs. Well, we'll go into that in a second. But that's all. That's it. Everything else after that is a bonus, okay? So if your horse has friends, forage, freedom, safety, comfort, and fun, you're doing fine. Your horse is doing fine. You are good enough. Your horse knows you're good enough. Everybody's good enough. We're all good. So forage, 24/7 forage, or some version of it, or getting close to it, working towards it. Friends, so having companions. That could be over the fence if that's best for your horse and your situation at the time. It could be within the same paddock or pasture as long as they get along. Great. Freedom, so the ability to move around. 24/7 turnout is perfect. Track system, paddock paradise, beautiful. Even if it's dry lot, just make sure it's designed so that they're moving frequently. Enrichment can really help with this. But lots and lots of movement. That doesn't necessarily mean on grass. Like I said, if you've got a metabolic horse, it doesn't mean stall them. It means they need more movement and they need less rich grass. So freedom to move, but also freedom like to make certain decisions and to make choices in their life. But as close as you can get to that 24/7 turnout. It may not be perfect. Even if you're only doing 12 and 12, that's still okay. Just, as close as we can get. The more movement, the better. Safety, so this means like away from the elements, away from harm, away from being neglected or abused, like they feel safe, right? Comfort goes into that too, so feeling comfortable, but mostly when I think about comfort, I think about not struggling with chronic pain, having their physical body taken care of in such a way that they are doing okay. Now, as your horse ages, or if they have chronic illness or lameness, it may not be possible for them to be 100% comfortable all the time, but can we get them pretty close to where they are doing okay? I mean, because nobody's perfect, right? Not even people. I know very few people that don't struggle with pain on and off, right? That don't deal with some level of pain, whether it's headaches or back problems occasionally, or their knee tweaks, gets some twinges in it when the storms come around, or maybe their muscles get sore in the winter, or whatever it is. People all the time, everywhere, deal with pain on a regular basis. The quality of life becomes compromised when we cannot manage it and it's constant, right? When the days that they're having good days is much fewer than the bad days, right? This is a whole nother conversation, a quality of life conversation. But so comfort is about pain and being able to move around comfortably and feel comfortable in their environment and in their own bodies. And then fun, that would be like enrichment, being able to play with their companions, being able to do what it is, enrichment kind of stuff. So whether that's just, looking for forage in different places, or even enrichment activities that you can provide them on occasion, that's that one. I feel like I forgot one. So friends, forage, freedom, safety, comfort, and fun. So yeah, we covered them. So if you can meet those, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because I guarantee you guys, it's hard to meet all of those needs on a daily basis, and it's never going to be 100% perfect. Life is not perfect. Life is messy, and we're all just working towards offering more of that. And also, you are probably one of the growing but still small number of people that even are aware that this is what we should be doing. And so you even working towards offering these things makes you a very qualified caregiver. That alone checks the biggest box. Even if it's not perfect, even if it's not the most ideal home. There is no such thing as an ideal home. There is no such thing as an ideal life. There is always more we can be doing. Always more. And this can be exhausting. We're going to come back to that. The always more we can be doing. But if you're even taking steps towards it, if you're trying, you are one of the very, very few people qualified out there to be able to provide your horse with a good quality of life and a good home. Okay? So meeting your own needs, it's going to be very similar to that. You could maybe not forage. Well, you could like food just in general. So friends, freedom, food, safety, comfort, fun for yourself. If you're able to provide yourself those things and taking care of your horse has not significantly compromised any of those areas, then you're doing good. You're good enough. Like this is okay. Now, again, it's not going to be ideal. Life is messy. A lot of us give up some things to be able to support our horses. For example, you might give up more social time so that you can be their mucking pastures. So your horse has a clean environment, right? So they can be comfortable. That's okay. As long as you haven't so isolated yourself from all of the world and, unless you're like an extreme introvert and that's actually good for you. But if you're an extrovert, let's say you really enjoy other people's company, you enjoy socializing, it's part of what you need to do well and to thrive. We need to not be so isolating ourselves then in that case where you have completely removed that need for yourself, right? So what can we do? This is where my job is a behavior consultant. I would come in and support you guys and teach you, or not teach you, but just help guide you through the process of getting back to a middle ground of helping your horse, but also not completely crushing your own quality of life, right? So we can find that middle ground so that you guys can have a good, healthy relationship and both of your needs are met, because I guarantee you, if you're not meeting your own needs, you're not going to be able to meet the needs of your horse for very long. You're going to burn out. So we need to be careful with that. So meeting your own needs. But if you can do that to a certain extent, and again, it's not perfect because we can't chase perfectionism. That's a moving goalpost. It's not perfect, but we're making progress. So progress, not perfection. If we're making progress in those areas and we're adequately able to meet them to a measure where the horse is mostly comfortable and you're mostly comfortable, you're doing great. You're doing well. You're doing fine. And this is going to be really important. And that is how you're going to be able to measure whether or not you're doing good enough. And you're going to be able to, and this is what I do for myself, remind yourself repeatedly that you're meeting your horse's needs, and that is all your horse has ever needed. Your horse wants to be a horse. They want to be a horse and only a horse. They don't care about medals. They don't care about shows. They don't care about having a job. They don't care about whether they have a purpose in life. Their purpose is solely to be a horse. So if you have set up your horse's life in such a way where they can be a horse, and you've met all those needs and they're comfortable and they're being a horse, you've done it. You have completed the task. You have crossed the finish line. You have achieved the goal. You are enough. And forget everything else everybody else is saying. Forget it all. It doesn't matter if you haven't ridden in 2 months. It doesn't matter if you don't put out enrichment, 5 days a week. You only get a chance to do it 1 day a week. That's okay. It's better than nothing. And it's progress, not perfection, because as soon as you get to the 5 days a week, you're going to be like, nope, we need to do 7 because that's better. And then you're going to get to the 7 days a week and you're going to say, actually, we should do it twice a day. That's better. And that's just going to be, again, going back to that. It's a moving goalpost. It will always be changing. And every horse is different too. So some horses will do quite well with enrichment a couple times a week or 1 day a week. And some will need more because of their behavior. And how can we know that? So this is a really good question. How can we know whether or not we are doing enough for the horse, like in as far as like meeting their needs? These ones that are not as fixed, like there's not an exact recipe, a formula, right? So let's say comfort or enrichment. We'll go with enrichment because it's a little bit easier. If I have a horse that is demonstrating some behaviors that are indicating to me that they are stressed and they are not thriving, right? Maybe they're just surviving. Maybe we're seeing some fence pacing. Maybe we're seeing some aggressive behaviors within the herd. Maybe they're picking on each other a little bit more than I would like to see. Maybe we're seeing, we're seeing a little bit of listless behavior or something like that. These would be indicators that my horse is not doing as well as I would like to see. So I'm going to try upping the frequency of the enrichment to, let's say, 3 days a week instead of just the 1. maybe that's not going to be enough. We'll see. We can gauge and see if anything improves. If it improves, it's up to you. Can you do more? Great, let's do more. If you can't, then let's leave it for now. And then we can evaluate later. Or maybe we try something else. Maybe you can only do enrichment 3 days a week. But maybe we could make an adjustment to their herd companions. Maybe it's one particular horse that is being more aggressive than the others. Maybe that one could start on something that helps calm them down a little bit, or maybe they need to be in a different herd or something like that. Like we could make adjustments other ways too. So and this is going to be an ongoing thing that fluctuates and changes and modifies depending on the season, depending on the horse, depending on you, depending on what you guys learn and discover, and things are always changing, and depending on how your horse is aging too. The aging horse is obviously going to need more support comfort-wise as they get older than a horse that's in their teens or younger. So that need is going to adjust as well. For example, I have a horse that's 29 right now, and she has definitely taken a big, it's just really shocked her system moving her home here. Even though it's been a year, we're still struggling with her weight a little bit. And she's doing okay though now. She was struggling a little bit with her feet, and she was struggling a little bit with her emotional state, but she's doing so much better in those other areas, but we're still working on her weight. That her comfort, I've really focused on her comfort, and I haven't been spending so much time doing training. So I don't really do a lot of training sessions with her. Instead, when I spend time with her, that time that I allocate to spend time with her, or to be with her, is more focused on her comfort. So what could I do bodywork wise? What could I do care wise? Like how can I help support her and keep her comfortable during our extreme heat right now, or the extreme cold, or just dealing with all of this stuff in her joints and things like that. So we can shift where we're spending our time and our energy to meet the horse's needs at the time. And this being flexible like that, and then choosing to and making an intentional decision, like I've done for myself with this horse, an intentional decision to be okay with that, to make that decision helps tremendously. I could so easily sit here and beat myself up about not doing much training with that horse, but I made the conscious decision when she moved that I would do a little bit of training just to be able to help her with her comfort support. So like I did some cooperative face cleaning training with her so that I could clean her face because she needed it for her comfort, to clean around her eye. She's blind in one, or only has one eye, so the other one needs cleaning, the eye socket. I made the conscious decision to shift the time that I spend with her to her comfort, and not even to have the goal of doing any other training. That helps so much, so that I don't sit here and over expect from myself and plan for me to do way more than I can actually do, and then have this constant time every time I get to the end of the week, man, I didn't do any training with her. Man, I didn't, the next week comes around, man, we didn't do anything. I really wanted to, but it wasn't realistic. It was not realistic. I have 7 other horses to take care of, and I cannot spend as much time as I want to spend on every single thing. So I prioritize what that individual horse needs to meet those core needs that we were just talking about. And it's not always going to be training. As much as that's my passion, that's what was really reinforcing to me, or very reinforcing to me, that's not what every horse needs as most at the time. And so I shift based on what my individual horse needs, which brings me to my primary thing, which is that actually the most reinforcing thing for me, which would help you guys maybe, is focusing on making the most reinforcing part about having horses being caring for them. And this can be hard when the primary focus is on riding. And that's the thing that is most reinforcing. And I'm not saying that's bad. Like, I enjoy riding. I do enjoy riding. I miss it right now. I haven't done much riding recently because I've been shifting my focus to supporting everybody's comfort needs because we've been dealing with so much hoof stuff. I do enjoy riding and I find it reinforcing, but it is not the most reinforcing. Like, if I could not ride any of my horses again, I, of course, would be sad. I'd be disappointed. But it's not going to make me doubt that I am giving my horses everything that they need. And it's not going to make me change my mind about how much I love horses and I love caring for my horses. And it's not going to crush all the joy that I find in horses, because my focus has always been on having horses with me, having that relationship with my horse, caring for my horses, being the best caregiver for them that I can be, is the most reinforcing part about having horses. No different than when we have dogs that live with the family, or cats, or gerbils, or ferrets, or birds. We don't ride birds, at least last I checked. And most people don't compete with their birds. But many people find having birds really reinforcing, caring for them, being with them, having that relationship with them, getting to know their little quirks and socializing with them, and just having them in your life and loving them. That is what's reinforcing. And so I try and bring my focus back to that and remember that that is my primary goal. It's not riding, it's not training, it's supporting my horse and taking care of their needs. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here because this is getting longer than I expected it to be. It's a really great topic, and I wanted to dive into it and look at a bunch of different areas. Of course, I wish I could just give you guys like here's your step 1, step 2, step 3. Of course, that's, the perfectionist side of me, but that's not going to be possible. What I do want to say though is that if your horse is really high needs, has high support needs, physically or behaviorally, or maybe you're struggling, maybe you're feeling a little fatigued, a little burned out, maybe you've overdone it, maybe you've had a hard time balancing your needs and the horse's needs. Here's how my recommendations for helping you get back to that balanced state with supporting yourself, or not even just about getting back to a balanced state, but how to support your own needs while taking care of a horse. Some things that I would recommend are going to be finding support. Not just physically, but also mentally and emotionally. So having a community that you can reach out to vent to just talk to get ideas from, to just be like, oh my gosh, today was a terrible day, just stuff like that. Or today was a great day. Or man, I'm just so burned out right now. And what do you guys do when you feel like this? Or things like that. Having that community that you can reach out to is going to be very, very, very important, no matter how low or high needs your horse is. And also, no matter how long you've been in equestrian, you can have been in equestrian your entire life and you still need a support system. I bet you, if you look throughout all of your years as an equestrian, you've had some kind of support system throughout it, whether it was just your friends at the barn or your trainers, or, you would go to clinics once a month or something like that, and you would catch up with the people there. Like, that's a support system, right? So you need a support system, emotionally, mentally, but then also physically as well. If you have your horses at home, I would highly recommend doing what it takes to find somebody to help you at least one day a week. Maybe it's just for feeding one day. Maybe they could do morning and evening feeds if you do both. Maybe it's just in the morning for 2 days or something like that. Like, find some way for them to help you, or maybe they can come for like 5 hours a week and just muck stalls or muck the pasture. Just something to alleviate some of the pressure and support, some of the pressure of supporting the horse, so that it can free up your time to do something enjoyable with your horse. This is going to be really important. Maybe you can say, okay, I'm going to hire the neighborhood kid down the road who's looking for a summer job to do 5 hours of pasture mucking or stall mucking, while I spend 5 hours is a lot for the kid, but let's just pretend maybe it's an older kid, maybe it's a teen. They come twice a week or something, or once a week, I don't care. You're going to spend those 4 hours going out and trail ride with your horse. Like, you decide, when they do this, I do this. It's something fun and enjoyable that we do together. Have a backup plan in case it's a terrible rainy day or your horse is not into it. Maybe you do some horse agility or some cooperative care or something. Like, something else you find enjoyable. Maybe grooming your horse. I don't really care what it is. Maybe it's not riding related at all. You dedicate that time to spending time with your horse. Or resting. Resting is perfectly acceptable. Go spend that time with some friends either too. Like, you could use it as socializing time too. So this is your weekly girls' night out, right? Or I don't know, whatever you find reinforcing, whatever you find relaxing and supportive, and meeting those needs that you need to meet for yourself as well. And then this goes into this is scheduling breaks. So maybe, once a month or every other month, you have that person or a different person or a family member or somebody does 2 days of chores for you. And that gives you 2 days of break. Maybe you can go on a little mini trip. Maybe you can just have a staycation and stay home and rest and read a book or something. Do something to meet those needs of your own, to make sure that you are getting a break from all of the care and all of the support towards your horse. And then I would highly recommend that this time not be spent reading and researching and learning more. I know a lot of us, myself included, really enjoy researching, learning new things, discovering new things. Can we better, fit our horse's saddle? How can we learn to better care for their feet? All that. But if you just spend this time diving back into how to better care for your horse, which is a wonderful thing, you're not taking the time to take care of your own needs. You're not pulling yourself out of the tunnel and looking at the whole picture and stepping aside and giving yourself a break. It's just a different version of supporting your horse, right? So this is really important, that you do give yourself a break to focus on yourself and not just taking care of another version, taking care of your horse. This is going to be extra important if you have many horses, or maybe you have other animals or other beings that you care for. Like for me with my 3 kids, and then we have dogs, and we have bunnies, and a bearded dragon, and we have all kinds of animals. We had cattle at one point. Anyway, all kinds of things. It's extra important that I do this because I have so many dependents, that's what I call them, so many people depending on me to take care for them, so many beings depending on me to care for them, that it is really important that I take that time to take care of myself. And it can feel selfish at first if you're, at least it did for me when I first started, but it's so very important. And what's really cool about it is once you get past that initial ick feeling, when it feels selfish, is you can actually start to see how it turns around. That time that you spend, just those couple of hours you spent on yourself, you turn around and you can give so much more. So it's actually the opposite of being selfish. That's at least how I've convinced myself. That can really help. And you know what? Also, I can think clearer and be more objective when I come back to taking care of my horses. After those times, I can think through it and be like, no, I'm doing a good job. I am good enough. I'm meeting all of their needs. Yes, I want to do this. Yes, I wish I could do more of that. Yes, I do want to work towards this. Yes, this is not as ideal as I want it to be. Yes, this horse is struggling right now. But now I can think logically about it and prioritize. So clearing that headspace, pulling yourself out of that cycle, out of that tunnel that your head is just going round and round and round in, spiraling in a doubt cycle, right? Pulling yourself out of it, turning that all off, thinking about taking care of your needs, whatever that looks like. For me, oftentimes it's just sitting with a good book, totally fiction, and I just binge read for like 2 days straight if I can, and just finish, I'll finish like a whole novel series, and I can come out of it and I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go again. And also, additionally, another thing I would recommend for you guys is to pace yourselves and be realistic with your time and what you can and can't do. Again, going back to that idea of the enrichment and how many times per week you can do it. If we're setting unrealistic expectations for ourselves and we have a to-do list that's a mile long and we can never actually complete that list, we can never get to the end of the day and see all of it checked off and then also have, this would be ideal, a little bit of extra time. We will never feel like we're doing enough. We will constantly be feeding that doubt of we are not good enough. So a practice that's really helped me is, and it's taken me some time to figure this out because I used to make a list that was so long. And I realized the list was too long and this is what was happening. I was constantly kind of creating like this like negative punishment kind of situation for myself, and causing frustration for myself because I was never able to complete it. I started shortening my list. So at first, let's say I had 20 things on my list, and these were usually pretty big things. This was not a small 20 list thing. So 20 things on my list. I realized I never was getting 20 things done, but sometimes I could get 10 done, right? Or something like that. So let's say I went down to 10. I think that's about where I went down to. So I went to 10 things on my list. Well, I was still having trouble a lot of days getting 10 done. The 10 things done were only if like they were small things, or like it was a super rare day where I didn't have any distractions or anything like that. So I was still having a lot of days where I was really frustrated and disappointed and feeling like I hadn't done enough. So then I shortened it down to like 8 things. I was doing better, but then I went down even smaller. And really, so what I try and do is I have like my top 3 things that I have to get done today, no matter what. I have my chores, so I always feed. I always refill the hay. And like there's set things that I always do. Like it doesn't even make it onto my to-do list because it's just, it has to happen every day. So I'm talking about my things that are specific to that day. I got down to like 3 or 4 things that I really wanted to get done that day. And if I got them done by 12, which never happens, but let's just say I did, and I had the whole afternoon, awesome. I could go spend time with my kids. I can go hang out with my horses. I can do whatever it is. If it took longer than that, I would usually have like an hour in the afternoon. That's like my ideal. If I can get my day done and I have like an hour where I'm like, oh, I finished my list, I don't know what else to do before I start my evening stuff. That's like really great. I feel like I found a good balance. I could even do 2 hours, but an hour is pretty realistic for how much I have to do, and not making the list so short that I'm not actually doing anything, or literally not getting enough done. But also not so long that I was causing myself a lot of frustration. That's something else that you can do, and this could be to your whole life, or it could be specific to your horses. Maybe you say every time you're with your horse, there's 1 or 2 things you're going to do that day, and you have an hour there or something like that. Try not to make your list of the things that you're going to do with your horse 10 things long if you only have an hour with your horse. Be more realistic and give yourself a little bit of grace period so that you can just do whatever with your horse when there's a little bit of extra time left. And that will help so much with the reinforcing factor and and it will avoid that not feeling like it's good enough, like you didn't get everything done. It's just this constant thing that is hounding you. Well, I didn't get it all done. That's just going to feed that self-doubt, feed that not good enough feeling. And I want you guys to know, really to wrap this up, is that you guys are doing great. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably one of the equestrians out there that is very passionate about caring for their horse and very dedicated to their horse's well-being. You're probably just a very intentional and considerate person that really does want what's best for their horse, and also, caring for yourself and other people and other beings around you. And so I feel very confident in telling you that you are good enough, that you are doing enough, and that even if there's something that you still need to learn, which is always, by the way, even if your horse's needs are not 100% met based off of what we talked about, even if you are still working on getting that 24/7 turnout, or they can only get 3 times or 4 times a day right now, but you're working on it, or you see the potential for it, it's just not there yet, but you're doing everything else. Or even if you're still, like, maybe this is the first time you're hearing about any of these things, but you really do want your horse to be happy and thriving, and you want them to be doing well, and this is all new information to you, but you're excited to dive into it and you really want to learn more. You're doing enough. You are a good home for your horse, and you're doing enough. And short of some few exceptions, I just feel very confident in telling you guys that you guys are taking care of your horses, that your horses are probably just in the best possible place that they can be, and you have so much to learn from them, and you guys have such a journey ahead of you, and there's so much potential for your relationship, and so much promise, and just such a future there for you both. And so I really hope that listening to this episode and listening to me talk about my struggles and what's helped me will also help you, and help you take the time to really enjoy your horses, and to remind yourself that you are enough, that you are doing enough, that you are good enough, and that your horse is doing well and is happy with you, and they don't need to go anywhere else, that you don't need to give them up or give them a different life, and that this is where they're supposed to be, and this is where you are supposed to be. Thanks so much for listening. If you have any questions, please do email me at info@thewillingequine.com. If you'd like more information on my courses, coaching, consulting, or even access to free resources, please do check out my website, thewillingequine.com. If you like this podcast or this episode, please do leave feedback on the platform that you listen to it on.